those of you who are political hardos and election nerds saw that the New York Times Siena poll just dropped. This is, I'm not going to say it's like Christmas when Nate Cohn drops polls, but it's better than Thanksgiving, I would say. I don't have to eat a lot of mushy food I don't like. And I think he's given us a lot to argue about. So I was thinking I would do kind of a quick top line tour, and then we could talk about whether our portfolios or our predictions are changing based on this new data. Are you ready to kind of like put on the brass knuckles and argue about partisan politics for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Higher performance and faster and more reliable. Nothing else has been done in a way that nothing else have ever done.
We got to tell you about Polymarket. Polymarket's data powers all of our show, and they are back in the United States for the first time in a while. So check out Polymarket if you haven't recently at polymarket.us and download their app for American traders. Again, we use Polymarket's data throughout our show. We really think they understand and believe in traders. So check out Polymarket's new US webpage, polymarket.us. And one final thing before we get started. Be safe out there, fam. Remember, this show is not financial advice. We cover prediction markets for informational purposes only. We are not telling you to buy or sell anything that we're discussing. And remember that people who come on this show may be trading their portfolios. They may be changing their positions when they discuss things, and they might not ever tell you. So be safe, do your own research. This is not financial advice. Okay, all right. So at the New York Times, Shane Goldmacher writes the lead-all for this new set of battleground polls. The headline is "Control of the Senate is up for grabs." Shane goes on to say, Republicans are defending seats in Alaska, Iowa, Maine, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas as they try to maintain their majority. Democrats are competitive in all states, but not leading in enough to take the chamber. So then we get some boring sounding data that basically goes through the states that the New York Times polled. North Carolina, which is a Republican seat, is basically done, D plus a million. Ohio, where Sherrod Brown is trying to retake his seat from a Republican incumbent. We've got actually a lot on that on the back half of this show with Andrew Tobias. New York Times says R plus 3. In Maine, where Graham Plattner, Doug, your personal favorite human being, he is up within the margin of error, D plus 2. Texas, Blue Texas, is still alive. Polls show even. And in Alaska, where we have a totally quizzical and bizarre race involving two people named Dan Sullivan and the kind of popular Democrat Mary Peltola, it is Republicans plus 2. Doug, let's just like frame this on the markets. The markets have been getting more bullish on the Republicans to hold the Senate over the course of the last month. We're now sitting at kind of like a 60-40 universe where the Republicans have sort of returned to a dominant position on Polymarket prediction markets. I know that we have both talked about wanting to be bullish on the Democrats to overperform in the Senate. But like, given this new information, your midterm forecast, are you kind of buy, sell, hold on Democrats to win the Senate at the current pricing?
I'm still buying Democrats to win the Senate, and I think you should be too. And here's why. So the top line numbers in these polls, I think on the whole, were definitely not good for Democrats. But I think you can say, 3 or 4 things about this. The first is that this is one poll, and there was only one Dan Sullivan in this poll. Where in the election, it looks like there's probably going to be 2 Dan Sullivans.
Interesting. Big if true.
Yeah, and so like the old kind of Nate Silver attitude towards one poll is you take the poll, you put it in the polling average. The second thing you can say is that 4 months out, polls tend not to be that accurate. And, the polls will get more accurate as we go into election day. Maybe the average polling error is 5 or 6% now, and maybe it'll be like 3 or 4% just before election day. And so at now, I think we're still in this stage where you'd want to put more weight on fundamentals. And if you think about the fundamentals, what you might expect for a state like Maine, where the Democrats won the congressional ballot by about 12 points, I think Kamala Harris won it by 7 points, would be that would move, if it the national mood is probably going to move 10 to 12 points to the left towards Democrats. And if you look at the swing from 2016 to 2018 in Maine swung by 12 points on the congressional ballot to the left. And so you'd kind of expect something similar. Maybe it's not going to swing quite as much because Maine is an extremely white state, and it's probably the minorities that are swinging more. But you'd probably expect at least a 6 to 8 point swing to the left. And what these polls are saying is that I think the New York Times had the congressional ballot in Maine at 11-point margin for the Democrats, where they won by 12 points in 2024. And so, maybe it's down to congressional candidate quality, but it doesn't exactly pass the smell test. I think Trump approval was also maybe a bit higher than you would expect.
Is the question, like you brought Kamala Harris in the last presidential election into the conversation here. So
Right.
is the question like whether Graham Plattner, the Democrat challenging Susan Collins, the Republican, is the question about whether Kamala Harris is a 5-point shittier candidate than Graham Plattner?
Absolutely. She did 4 points, 5 points worse than the congressional candidates did. And so I guess, yeah, it does. When you think about candidate quality, you can kind of believe candidates like 3 to 5 points worse than the average candidate, but it's hard to think about a candidate that's going to be 10 points worse.
So this far out, maybe I'll put a punctuation mark, and then I want to ask you about your man crush, Graham Plattner. But this far out, I mean, I feel like the smart move is to just kind of like you want to go where the ball is going to be, not where the ball is, right? And just like how many bad stories are going to be written about Trump. How many reporters are going to like be eager to write the oppo about, whatever Republican candidate is out there. And again, like how many bullets is Trump going to give for people to use against, Republicans down ballot, who he seems like he's barely has like a speaking relationship with right now. So I think continuing to be like, I would say this is a hold or a buy. I am holding Democrats to have the Senate. I am down in that trade right now. But I just think this far out, like you don't need to be rearranging your portfolio based on, one piece of information. The wins, and you've been very consistent about this, like the wins are really at the Democrats' back. And, sitting on temporary losses is not really the end of the world this far out.
Absolutely. And actually, you know what this poll points to, which is kind of interesting. So the Democrats are losing behind 2 or 3 points in like 3 or 4 different Senate seats. And so I remember your strategy before the 2024 election, which was you were convinced that Trump is either going to win all of the swing states or possibly get blown out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so I think this also, if this poll was just off 3 points in either direction, I think you could see a sweeping of the Senate seats in either direction. Either the Democrats go and they win 53, 54 seats. Or maybe they lose all of these and they end up with just 48 seats. Also a possibility, and maybe one that the market isn't pricing in it to the extent that it should be.
Yeah. Oh man, that was the most brutal. I was like, this is the trade of a lifetime. And I was working at a company where I would have lost my job and been thrown in a very dark dungeon if I had made that trade. But yeah, that was so exciting.
Trump to sweep was an amazing bet. I didn't have enough shares of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, well, so Doug, when I think about people who love Graham Plattner and think that he's presidential material, I think about like a lot of old ladies who are retired with Ivy League degrees and like walking around in Teva somewhere in New England. But I also think about you. So I think you've sort of alluded to the fact that you're not really blinking at this trade. You're pretty big on Plattner to win this Maine seat, right? Like, are you still holding that, or are you?
I am. Probably my fair value has come down. At some point, I probably thought the fair value was maybe 80% or 85%, and then maybe I adjusted down to 75%, and maybe now I would get closer to 70%. I still think it's value. I do think probably the scandals have hurt him some. In various ways. I mean, there's always a debate. He's had so many scandals now that none of them have really caught on to the extent where his approval is cratering or he's forced out of the race. And so I kind of imagine, you wonder what kind of scandals remain to be revealed in the future. My base case guess, I guess, would be that there's more moderate scandals, maybe nothing that bad, but more of kind of the same, and they continue to hurt him modestly.
Doug, we have reached the point in the show where we need to salute our community and the people who motivate us and inspire us. How do you feel about doing some oracles of the week here, giving a couple hat tips? Did you come prepared? Did you have show and tell?
Sure, I guess I could do a plug for Nate Silver. I think his
Oracle
model's
of the
been
week?
pretty good. Oracle of
You're
the
gonna do
week
it?
for Nate Silver. He's been his knockout projections have been pretty good so far. He even got England today by a whisker, and England won by, it looked like, the slimmest of margins. So
Yeah. Shout
Yeah.
out Nate Silver.
yeah, we should have him on
okay.
the pod.
We should. Nate Silver, if you're watching this,
Yeah.
we will reserve a 20-minute slot for you. Okay, so I've got for Oracle of the Week, I've got a trader that a lot of you know. I've got Bernard Bulletin. And the reason why Bernard is my Oracle of the Week is I'm feeling kind of jealous right now. So we've hosted this podcast. Actually, we've been talking about Melat Kuros in Colorado for a while as someone who seemed to have momentum to unseat Diana to get blah, 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 blah. If you're an election nerd, you followed that. Melat Kuros just won convincingly in Colorado this week to get rid of an incumbent Democrat. I never had the guts to be like, she's going to crush it. She's going to win it all along. And Bernard just came in from the start. I don't care about the price. I don't care about the odds. This is a lock. We're paraphrasing a little bit, but you just got to salute someone who's just got high conviction and just says, just do it. Just like push the button and trade. So Bernard Bulletin really on a hot streak. Oracle of the Week coming from me. Hope to see him sometime on this show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.